Hey everyone, it's Cindy at an open door. This is sharing the word. We're currently working with Divine Union, and as is our habit, and during this hour, we're going to begin with a clip from the guides. This one is called The Green Room Effect, and it's about 10 minutes long. So here we go.
Now you think the making of the body is what your parents did one night. You think the making of the species is perhaps a man and a woman in a garden who procreated, and a bunch of you came from that space. But indeed what you are is expression. Manifest expression, as is the lizard, as is the snake, as is the tigress, as is the chimpanzee, all wondrous expressions of Source in all its splendor. Now, the divine self knows who it is, as does the chimpanzee. It is Paul that doesn't know who he is. It is Alice and Frederick and Arthur who does not know who they are. The divine self, come as Arthur indeed knows, and once the divine self, as Arthur, is allowed to claim its purview, which is the claim, I am in the upper room, I have come, it announces its presence and being to all aspects of itself, inclusive of form. Now, the teaching of form is imperative at this time because the structure that you hold of your reality is actually moving to a less dense field, the lampshade being removed in stages that has precluded your light from shining. And the evidence of separation that lampshade has amassed, be it the self as unworthy, be it the tarnish of past pain or terror, be it the beliefs in what are allowed and what is not allowed, all of these ideas must be understood as present in the energetic field and about to shift. Now, we say about to shift because there is some preparation that is required, not only for you who hear these words today, but for the species itself that is moving to a level of acceleration where it cannot amass the old evidence any longer. Now, there's a reason for this. The old evidence of fear, the claim of separation, has actually come to its end, which simply means it cannot replicate itself anymore. You must understand that when a cancer spreads and spreads and spreads, eventually it kills its host. There is nothing more to live upon. There is nothing more to devour. There is nothing more to say, I am in you and you are mine too. Now, the residual aspects of fear, the claims that have been made historically, still surround you. Perhaps the culture, perhaps the fears that the culture holds, perhaps the maintenance of ideals that hold war as necessity. But to understand that the evidence of these things is actually coming to an end, it simply means that there is nothing much more to devour. It has done its job, and you, the collective, has finally said, enough already, we will see if we might, potential, move beyond this old way of operating. Now imagine that you have always lived in a room where the light was tainted green, and it might be an interesting green light, but everything is green, like it or not, because the light claims everything in its shade or tone. And now the lens upon the light that tainted everything green is being removed, and suddenly you're being invited to see things as they truly are, beyond what you thought they were, beyond what you believed they might be. And then you begin to say, oh, my dear, look at what is around me. It's not what I thought. Look at who I am with. Look at what I thought I should do. What am I to do now? What I thought was so, perhaps was not so. I am beginning to perceive it differently. But the room that you are still operating in, like it or not, was actually claimed in agreement to separation. Everything in the room was perhaps purchased or inherited by you, or arranged in such a way through a belief in separation. Well, you want the couch to look lovely up against this wall because the neighbors always like that couch, and you like to have the couch that the neighbors admire. And you also like to have the children that look a certain way, go to the certain school, have a certain way of speaking and eating and choosing. So when you begin to see that the evidence of your life choices which surround you are actually born in a claim of separation or fear, you will actually begin to understand that these things are about to be moved, because these things held in that level of density cannot be maintained from the level of vibration that is now present. Now, if you can imagine that the light from what we call the upper room is beginning to fill that room, the ceiling on that room being removed, and suddenly the light filling all things must be reknown, rearranged perhaps, the couch reupholstered, the children gone this way and that, the neighbors' opinions suddenly disappearing into the muck that they once came from. All of the things you thought were so terribly important are not quite so important, but what is present is what is true. What is true is always true. And understand this, your idea of personal truth, while useful in some ways, it is my truth that I have outgrown this relationship. It is my truth that the man doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. It is my truth that I am the one who knows more than all. Whatever it may be, these are indeed your opinions. And you may have your opinions and work with them if you wish. But understand this. What is true is always true. And the divine self, the spark of God within you that claims itself in replication, much in the way that fear has done, claiming all things in the light that it is, knows who it is in realization. It is not seeking, it is not denouncing, it is not aspiring, it is not demanding, it simply is. And it is true expression. The claim, I know who I am, identity, I know what I am, form, expressed form, is accompanied by the claim, I know how I serve. Now, this is not a claim of the intellect. I know that I like to do this on Sundays, and I like to feed the homeless on Thursdays, and on Mondays and Tuesdays I like to play poker with my friends. You may choose what you like, but this is not your service. How you serve is how you are most fully expressed as the divine self, which is not operating by the old rule book of potentials. The old rule book of potentials forged in the common field always claims things in hierarchy, better, worse, less than, more than, as you understand these things. It is better to be in high school than kindergarten. It is better to be in a PhD program than elementary school. Says who? Really, if you think about it, the ideas themselves are somewhat ridiculous. You are learning things without a classroom, you are learning things without a textbook, and you are living your life without the rules of conditioning that the personality selves, plural, have been indoctrinated in and by. I know how I serve is the divine that expresses beyond edict, beyond the personality's designs for what it should be known as, how it should be seen, how it must be agreed to in the company of others, how it must have a title on her desk, how it must be the one who is seen in the way she thinks she should be seen, because perhaps then her life will hold meaning. Perhaps then she will get what she wants. Perhaps then he will be happy. Whilst there is nothing wrong with aspiration, you must understand that if the divine self or the true self in activation claims you in accord with its requirements, your needs will be met in ways beyond what the personality self might demand, conjure, or express as desire. Whilst you may wish to swim the channel, you don't have the facility to do so. While you wish to fly to the moon, perhaps that opportunity is not present in this lifetime. But what is present in this lifetime is almost everything that you can imagine that can be invoked through the divine self. And the divine self is not limited by the litany of choices that you have utilized. So if you think you are here to do this or that, you may well be, and you may enjoy the work you do, but understand that your expression need not be the work you do. It is how you sing. It is how you express.
Good morning, everyone. I put the page number where we are. Does everybody know where we are? Page 76, the last paragraph. Now you think of the yogis or the great sages. That is where we are. But before we begin, just say good morning. Thank you, Cindy. Does anyone have any thoughts about that short channeling? Called the green room, huh? Because looked like he was in a green room. Yeah, Cindy.
It was the green room effect.
Ah,
And to me, and lately he's been calling it the blue mist, and it's the same thing as, for me anyway, as Rupert Spira's pink tinted glasses. This idea that everything has a filter to it. I enjoyed that. Something in it reminded me of what I heard this morning, which I heard in a new way in listening to the guides in Boone, which was that when we're lifted to the upper room, the fear doesn't immediately leave the body. Like we rise in form to the upper room, but what happens is sort of like we go into the waterfall. So the fear is still there in the body. It doesn't just disappear. It's not magical thinking, but it's no longer being fed and it is being transformed. So they were pointing to this recognition that it's not always comfortable when we first step into this higher vibration. Um, so there's something about what he was saying and what I heard this morning, at least in a new way, that feels related. So that's what I have to share.
thank you. Thank you. Suzanne.
Yeah, so what I think is so lovely. The images that they present are so lovely. Everyone can interpret them in their own way and come to their own awareness of what that means. But what I've recently realized is because I took the whole course, I took the whole Paul Selig course that Next Level Soul offers. And I've been in this group that has expanded and expanded and expanded, beyond my understanding, for almost 10 years, I think. And this course that they have on Next Level Soul is like this. It's like the turbo course of all those books, every single book. For a while, they were introducing one attunement at a time in each book, and now it's available if anyone's interested, um, to feel the resonance of those teachings through this course. So I didn't mean to change the subject. I just meant to be so grateful, that the circle has expanded so far beyond what it originally has, and I'm so glad to have been part of being able to see that, and share it with this group as well as, so many others are sharing it with other groups. And they're constantly saying the same thing using different images, and I just love that because different people can understand it at different levels and with different prompts. So that's what I got out of this green room exercise, is that we all are able to hear it in our own way.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Welcome, everybody. August 21st. Is there anything about this date? I don't see anything on my calendar. It feels auspicious to me. I don't know why. I cannot believe that we are almost into September. We've spent the whole summer together. And it feels to me like we just started. So let's start this reading. Cindy's offered to read. Anybody else want to do reading this morning? And Dago? Okay. And Suzanne? And Lonnie. All right, we'll go with those four and see how far we get. And we're at the bottom of page 76. I guess I would say before we start, there's a part of me that's really curious about this transformation of physical form, you know. And I understand that we have to experience it, but yeah, I'm just really curious about it. What is it going to, and I suppose we're in it right now, so we're having the experience of it now. And I'm trying to, sometimes I'll just stop and think, do I feel differently than I did a year ago? And can I put my finger on what that difference is? And so I play with that a little bit. I don't know if any of you have done that, but um, see, I'll just put that out there. Like, yeah, Suzanne and Lonnie's going to raise her hand. Okay, Suzanne and then
So,
Lonnie.
so for me, it has been so subtle and so gradual. Um, but ev I live with this every day, and I'm reminded of this wisdom, and I don't want to say emanating from me, but I can feel it. I can just feel it. And the people that I met that I've never known before will make a comment about my eyes, or about, you know, something around me. And so I'm continually meeting people that are on a higher level of awareness. And we meet each other and we smile and we just go on. And it's with a knowing of who we are, who we really are. And so that to me is how it manifests. And I don't know if that's a shift in form or what. I don't know what it is,
Mm,
but I know it's real.
mm. Okay, thank you. All right, that's as good a description as any, I guess. Yeah, works for me. Okay, Lonnie and then Indigo.
Good morning, fam.
Good morning.
I had this discussion with my acupuncturist probably 2 months ago because I do no Western medicine at all. And I was telling him about feeling less congested, less dense. And we were talking about the fact that, as I'm not so focused on fear, I just feel lighter, but not in body, but in the only way I could describe it was density. And he says that makes a lot of sense because fear creates density. He says, and as a result, the body has to work a lot harder to be grounded in gravity because the being is less dense. And I looked at him and I'm like, okay. And I walked away. But as I've walked and as I've listened to talks and stuff, that makes a lot of sense, you know? Because I told him, I said, but I'm not losing weight. He says, it's not about weight. It's not about any of that. It's about how the body is on the earth and grounded to the earth. And as that density fades or gets thinner, it takes more energy to ground the body in gravity to the earth
Hmm. All right.
because the body is physical.
Interesting.
So I've been kind of watching and seeing how that works out.
Well, we'll be interested in that journey. Thank you, Lonnie. And Dago, how's it working for you? How's it manifesting?
So great to be here. Um, I'm actually just seeing change all around me. And I'm learning to listen. I'm learning to get quiet. And that's when I can listen, is when I'm quiet in the silence. And now I've been I'm like, so so for instance, mosquitoes love me. They always have since I was a baby. And I'm listening, and God and Mama are telling me that's not true. And I'm following my guidance, and they have not touched me. So I'm just starting to listen and get quiet. And I'm trusting because Indigo does not trust. Indigo's like, no, we need to, and I'm like, no, I'm listening. So it's been amazing. So thank you.
Thank you, Dago. Thank you. Anybody else? William.
Well, a couple things. Bill Pettit, my good old buddy I've known since the 80s, who's a psychiatrist all over the world. Three principles, three principles, three principles. Also did a stint with Steve Jardison, ultimate coach. You name it, you name it. Nothing broken, all whole. Has one cause of mental illness, and that's it's a spiritual cause. He's written a particle, he's talked about it on all the physiological, psychological, psychiatric connections, how stress, chronic stress, is the one disease behind the over 500 different mental illness diagnoses. One disease, one cause. It's a chronic stress, but it's a spiritual. And so that's his whole message over and over. And this guy is just the most loving, joyful. And I'm sure if you've ever met him, you just cannot be around him without just almost like, oh my God, it's just so much fun and loving and lightness. The other thing is I've just been now yet another book, yet another one. Oh my goodness. 7 Steps to Awakening. I couldn't put it down last night. Hours. Silence, 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 silence. Be still and know. Silence. Just silence. Stillness, silence. Over and over. Desiderata, Maharshi, you name it, you name it, you name it, over and over. I just go through and almost every page. It's silence. It's silence. So what
Okay,
I see, that's what I get.
silence.
And that's the noun.
Mhm. Okay,
It is the same thing.
all right. So new appreciation of silence, or maybe a more invigorated appreciation of the silence. So the question that I asked was, the guides are saying that the body is being lifted, that the manifestation is changing, and that the physical form is rising to a higher vibration. And my question to everybody was, how is that manifesting for you? How are you feeling that? If you're noticing it. And so that was it. Each one of you has given a unique answer that I really appreciate. And I'm sure that it's different for all of us. Yeah. John, good morning, John.
Good morning. What I'm noticing, Amy, is in answer to your question, and it's coming to me through the people that are speaking. First of all, is recognize the chronic stress that's in me, and second of all is the silence that's needed, which points to the fact that the reason I put my hand up in the first place was really to acknowledge Indego how much I really appreciate that she can pause and take time. It's like saying tic-tac-toe between almost every word. And I really, really appreciate that in Dago. I get time to appreciate you. I get time to slow down, let go of the chronic stress, and embrace the silence. So let me say this, Dago, I love you with all my heart and soul. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Cindy has volunteered to read first, so why don't we start our reading, if that's all right with everyone? Again, bottom of page 76, last paragraph. Take it
Very
away, Cindy.
Thank you. Now, you think of the yogis or the great sages that have lived in communion with the source of all things. And in fact, they were doing one thing that each one was doing, knowing time as an idea and knowing God as an absolute that claims time and allows time to be transcended. What is a miracle but a transcendence of time and matter? Something occurs that should not occur. Something is claimed that could not be claimed except by one who is not bound by the old rules. Now you think of a saint, or perhaps a prophet, as someone having access that no one else can. Indeed, the true self come as prophet, or monad embodied as the idea of saint, is what does the work. But the divine is present in every heart. Now, we are not making you superhuman. The challenge of your times is that you begin to think of yourselves in deified ways. Look at the tricks I can play. Look at the gifts I have been given. Your natural abilities, psychic if you wish, spiritual if you must know, have actually been suppressed over the ages for several reasons. You agree to it first and foremost. Don't go about saying they did this to us, because you give the they great power. So you suppressed, in an agreement to separation because you could not believe that you were allowed to know yourself beyond certain ideals. These ideals were generally tenets of religions which required you to abide through a treatise where you were giving alms or tithing or giving authority to the priest or priestess to receive communion through an intermediary. Now, communion is present beyond the intermediary. Communion is present beyond the service that says it offers communion. A symbolic communion, an esoteric communion, can be useful. It gives you the privilege of knowing something is so. But it is the power you authorize communion with, or the idea of communion, that gives it authority in your life. To move beyond the old ideas of what you are allowed, what you can claim or know yourself as, requires two things. You understand yourself as capable of moving beyond time. Now, this does not mean you bilocate to another city or another planet and have a family there. It simply means that the consciousness you hold is not bound by form, and form is what tethers to the idea of time. Your mind is free. Your ideas of time are bound in history, but indeed the mind is free. When you realize that the energetic bodies that you hold can indeed travel hither and yon, up, down, and sideways, it's quite exciting. But you do this for reasons. When you know who and what you are, how you align in the present moment will reveal requirements. It appears that almost everyone I'm listening to, or at least the way it's hitting here right now, is talking to me about time and about aging and about the physical form and what it means. And I didn't raise my hand when you asked the question because for me anyway, right now, in order to answer the question, I have to refer to the past. I have to compare where I am now to what I remember myself being. And that gets real confusing in here when I sit to do that. That being said, there's no question that physically, um, based on comparison to the past, there's something very different about my experience of life right now. It's quieter. Um, I feel more energized and younger. Um, there's more movement in my face than there's been in over a dozen years. So there is a real physical shift. And I've been inspired this week especially with working with Dr. Hawkins. The question that's been arising is, without using the thinking mind to answer it, is what is my relationship to my body? And then I sit and watch. And I'm watching the mind give me answers, which I'm not interested in. The other day, I asked that question and I sat, and my knee, which Cindy doesn't have a problem with, started. There was this intensity of sensation that came and went, as if the body is attempting for me to do anything but sit in that inquiry, which is so interesting. So, um, Dr. Hawkins had a series of contemplations, which he suggested we use. What is my relationship to myself? What is my relationship to the world? What is my relationship to life? It was all part of that conversation we discussed yesterday, but it left me with this question: what is my relationship to this form? And just asking that question, um, and watching all the things that attempt to answer it from a place of separation and just staying in the question is it's fabulous. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you. Well, there were two things in this reading that pointed to. One was an increase in what we would call psychic abilities. And no one mentioned that when I asked the question. And I'd really appreciate Cindy's words that the the question asks one to compare and to pull time forward to, to look at your history and pull that forward. But there's nothing wrong with discernment. So the increase in psychic abilities, I think I've heard every single person here say something about having more knowing of things. And things that perhaps used to seem like, wow, I didn't expect that to happen, have now become more commonplace, almost to the point that we don't even feel the need to talk about it anymore. The other thing that no one mentioned that Paul actually talked about a little bit in the interview with Next Level Soul was the sense of being tired, because as the frequency rises, he described it as tuning your body to a radio signal and then holding it there in order to stay at that higher attunement. And maybe that's just when he's channeling, but I thought that that might apply to some of us, just coming back and forth between, between channels, to put it in under or frequencies, might be a little bit tiring to the physical body. So I thought I'd put that one out there. Okay.
One of the things I find is that presence requires a lot of energy. Intentional presence requires a lot of energy. And for me, it's been being willing to allow that tired, not telling myself I've got to keep going. I had a teacher once who told me that for every hour of presence I give to another, I have to give that to myself, to the regeneration of this being. So I get that. I mean, I've been hearing it in the teachings too about the tired, and it makes sense. But then to be willing to allow the tired to be what it is, and then to turn into an energy of rejuvenation instead of one of pushing through,
Yeah.
has been key.
Yeah. I also noticed and again, the Course in Miracles, the whole forgiveness, the whole idea of looking beyond and the forgiveness thing, because, and Cindy, and a number of us have mentioned this as well, just being much more sensitive to when you're out of alignment, being much more sensitive to that and more grading and much less willing and able to tolerate being out of alignment.
The way that my system explained that to me is when you existed in that 24/7, it was the energy that drove. But once we stopped existing in that disalignment or misalignment and moved more into an alignment, now when we move back into that or find ourselves back in that, it's amplified by 1,000 because it's no longer our norm. It's no longer that place I know how to deal. It's so completely different from what I become used to. But it's what I used to walk in 24/7. Anger, I used to walk in that 24/7. Now when I find myself pulled into a place and I open my eyes and I'm feeling that thing of anger, it could be about something minuscule, but it feels like it's 1,000 times bigger because it's no longer my home.
Yeah. I imagine that we will reach a point where it becomes the momentum for that movement. It just carries itself. And he said in the what we listened to, the end of personal truth. He talked about that. I don't know if he said the end, but he drew our attention to the personal truth. and basically saying the idea of personal truth is not really working anymore. You know, it's a universal truth that the collective is going to align to, which I think is that's a whole other idea. But let's let's keep reading because the next sentence is maybe we'll touch on that, and Indigo's going to do our next reading. So Indigo, do you want to read from the bottom of page 77 to maybe to that last full paragraph of 78?
Okay.
Okay.
Each of you has requirements as you develop a spiritual being. You have a thing called a calling, which most of you unfortunately believe is an industry. My calling is the nurse, or to a man in business. Your calling is realization. That is that is finally everybody's calling, to realize their nature and to align to it and to be an expression of source as it would work through you. How you are called at this level is always in the ever present now. You don't write up a brochure about your great calling and put everybody on the cruise ship where you can show them your gifts. Your true gifts are an expression in the ever present now. If your soul has a requirement of growth through a demonstration of an ability, you can count on it. You can count on it being expressed and utilized in a high way. But you deify the person who appears to be public with her abilities. And you forget the one that is truly enlightened or truly aware, who does her work in simplicity and in grace. I love that.
Mm.
The divine self or monad operates in grace. I love it too. She is not obstructed. It is not obstructed. It simply is. In the upper room, the obstructions created through an agreement to time what things should be, a way of knowing through separation, are released. And the mandate of the true self is then expression, simple expression. And the expression comes in the moment of service or demonstration through knowing. Now, when you know, you acknowledge that you know. You are generally compelled to act. It is time to wash the dishes. You go and wash the dishes. It's time to change this life and live in a higher way. Your soul is asking for a transition to be undertaken because you understand the truth of your statement. Because in truth, a lie will not be held, will be dispelled. In fact, By truth, you may align to the highest in an unhindered way. The obstruction that you may create would be there then for your own learning.
Thank you, Indigo.
I love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Operating through grace. Yeah, quietly. All right, I've got Suzanne reading next.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Imagine, excuse me, imagine someone who is learning to run. They challenge themselves. They run higher and higher or faster and faster. They do what they must in a realization of their ability to run. In some ways, we do the same. Each text we have offered has instructed you in your own ability to maintain a level of tone. And each tone, once maintained, is not only integrated in the system, it builds upon the next until the entire energetic field is operating in union. And this is the text of union. Because it is a text and not a series of texts as the others have been, it may operate in two different ways: an agreement to what is already true and a denial of what was never true. And because we do this, we are actually entering a way of instructing all of our students in a vast portal where what is apparent can be known, what is seen can be tested, and what is true is indeed acknowledged as such by each individual who encounters herself in this vibrational field that the text holds. The text holds a field. It is a field. And when you enter into the text, you enter into the field where the energetic bodies are actually shifting in an agreement to the work that was done prior through this authorship. While this is not the final text that we will bring forth, it is in some ways a pinnacle of prior learning. Now, we are using linearity or a narrative of linearity to instruct you, but you must understand that the energetic bodies are, in fact, in tandem in different ways in your experience, and your idea of time is actually uninformed by prior time. All you really have is an idea or memory of what was before you, or what you experienced in your own narrative or linear time as before you. Excuse me. In fact, all things are now. Now, when a new thought is claimed and then integrated, it actually informs all time. And this is not well understood. Oh, that's so true. Yeah, I just want to underline that one. The memory of a flower that is actually present in the physical plane is always there. The etching of the flower in the energetic body of your idea of planet is always there. Every thought that was ever thought actually exists in a schemata of all thought. And every life ever lived is actually present in a simultaneity that can be constructed, understood, and perceived. When one lifts to a level of perception where she can perceive an idea of history from different vantage points, she will then understand that the future can be perceived because all it is your idea of a future. Just as history is only understood in the past because you experience in an idea of what the past was.
Thank you.
That was a lot.
Yeah, I just looked up what schemata means. And it's a psychological term. It's also a biological term, but it means a pattern of thought or behavior that organizes categories of information and the relationships among them. So it's a mental structure of preconceived ideas, a framework, right?
It also brings to mind the idea of the Akashic field,
Yes. Yeah.
not being anything tangible, but an energetic library of all of thought. Or Teilhard de Chardin's concept of the noosphere.
Yes. Yes. I just want to point back to last meeting when Alka asked the question about time. I had it in my notes to kind of bring that up again because she really started us off on a great conversation at the very end. Just wondering what this whole business was about changing the way that we perceive time. And so I wondered if I could just ask Alka if this has helped her understand, or if she even remembers her question, but if it's offering any depth to what arose for you last week.
I do remember the question, and as soon as I got out of the mind, my question was answered.
Okay.
So, and all week, this idea. Every time I've read or heard something, it's talking about time. And this morning, when I did the dyad, and the imperative was fullness or experience fullness, where I realized that I can only experience fullness when I'm in the present and not in the past, not in the future. And even though the sun rises and sets and changes its angle and the light changes and everything, nevertheless, everything I'm experiencing is in the now. So that's what came up for me. And as soon as everybody started to talk, when I asked the question, my question was answered by every single person who spoke. So that's where I am at the moment.
Thank you. Wow. I just have to say that the way that you just spoke was so graceful. It was really lovely. Thank you for that. Yeah. Ugh. Okay, anybody else have anything? All right, I've got Lonnie is reading next.
I am becoming confused, he says. Can you describe this? Well, your idea of a battle, again, something that happened, or you agree that happened, can be etched in the field, the energetic field of the planet, and then perceived. But you can also understand that the battle somewhere is happening now and is informed by all who think of it, who thought about doing it, or experienced the battle itself. Your understanding of time begins to become circular. You see things not in a line, but in an ever-present circle where you can go up and down and see the same image in a translated fashion, depending on how you perceive.
Hmm.
we begin every chapter in this text with the idea of perception. When we see you in a perfected state, simply meaning we are transcending time and even the idea of you as you would be perceived, to comprehend you beyond time and at once in all time. All time means in infinity, and eternity is the present moment. It's all eternity is, the present moment. Everything else is an idea of what was or what can be. Oh, I'm getting such an energetic flow right now with this. And I have to say out loud what's being said so that I can read on. And what's being said is humanity has no understanding of eternity or infinity. It uses the word forever as though it understands, but forever is the explanation of what was just said in this last part. But humanity has no ability to truly understand infinity or eternity from their mindset. I don't know what that means. I just had to say it out loud. He interrupts the teaching. But is this a contradiction? When you talk about humanity being at a brink or at a time of reckoning, you are implying linearity or a cause and effect. Cause and effect still exists. Wait, let me pause. Cause and effect still exists. On the dense plane of the common field, you are in an experience of time. That is the mandate you have chosen. You all have a timepiece and a calendar that reminds you where you should be. But you don't understand that the month of the year is an idea that has been codified and claimed in form, or a holiday or a season, and how you believe these things to be, and how they are actually perpetuated by consciousness is something that you don't understand yet. Everything is made or chosen at a collective level. You are living in a world that you expect to live in. You are seeing a vista that others agree to. When others agree to a new vista, the vista will be transformed.
Thank you.
So I've been having this, I've been having this experience of non-time. And I kind of describe it as just being here, not knowing. This is one of my students calling. I'll get to it after. Of just being here, not like I mostly have no sense of what's going on, what's the time of day, what time it is, or anything like that. And it's not even about not knowing what time it is. It's about there's nothing attached to that anymore. You know, there was a conversation the other day about who says I have to eat eggs at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm gonna have to take this. I think this is an emergency. They keep calling. I'm gonna
Okay,
get off. I'm sorry.
no worries. Come back in when you can. Anybody else have any thoughts about this? All time means infinity. And eternity is the present moment. That's all eternity is the present moment. It's really what Alka said, I think. Cindy
I'm
and
still,
Alka.
I'm
Alka.
still confused. I'm still confused about. Sorry, Cindy, were you about to speak?
Oh, please, I'm listening.
No, I was just going to say I'm still confused about eternity and forever and ever type of thing. I've had so many experiences of realizing that time is not linear. I have seen or experienced somebody being healed even before anybody knew they were ill. And then the treatment arriving and then the prayers being said, it was just all over the place. And I realized it's not like one thing after another. Things can happen whenever. It's all the same thing. But I still get confused. Thank you. Cindy.
Um, the guides have another saying, which I've been sitting in, which is that the small self thinks, the monad knows. And I've been having this experience of knowing, sort of like when Alka said that she asked the question and then just sitting and getting out of her mind the answer revealed. Um, so it's like there's a knowing of this, and then the confusion appears to arise as this body, small self attempts to put it into words, and then it just gets confused. And then resting back into what is not limited by the body and the mind, there's this relaxation into knowing again. And so there's becoming a more of a clarity in the recognition of where that level of confusion is being created. Does that does that jive with what anybody else is experiencing? But that's what's happening here. I know, but then I go to bring it through the filter of this being and it gets all kind of jumbled. So that's what I have to add
Yeah.
to this
I
conversation.
I just feel that my brain is not the instrument that is very useful for this. You know, the brain is not the right tool to understand time. It's beyond its comprehension. And it only understands the linearity of time. Okay, Alka, then Sandra, and then Suzanne.
Okay. I was just going to say, when I have a knowing, I'm now trying to wonder how I can hide it from my mind. Because, sneak it in without the mind holding on to it, because I know that the mind will then jump in and start playing with it and messes it up or ties it up in knots. And I sit there and wonder, how can I hide this from my mind now? That's all I had to say.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I I I can understand that. I sense what you're saying. Yeah. Or just ignoring what the mind might have to say about it. Like it's just not important. You can go away. Sandra, good morning.
Hi,
Welcome back.
good morning. So sorry I'm late. Um, I'm just prompted to share an experience that I had. I think it was probably 20 years ago. I used to live in Ellicott City, Maryland, and there was this pathway behind our house that was in a giant park, um, protected land. And my husband and I used to take walks in it. And one day we were beginning our walk, and I had this feeling of overwhelming love for him. And then I had a thought, and the thought was, I want to be with him forever. I never want this to end. And like a snap of the fingers, a click, something happened, and I was all of a sudden I realized I'm in forever. So the mind led to the experience. It's not like getting rid of the mind. The mind's a tool. The mind prompted the experience. And the experience was, I said to myself, using my mind, this is eternity. I'm in it. I don't have to cling to anything. It was, and it lasted about an hour as we were walking through the woods, just, I'm already there. I'm in eternity. It's not, eternity isn't a future. It was just so amazing. So, and every time I've had an experience similar, it's always been some acknowledgement, realization is the right word, realization that comes from the mind and leads to an experience. And that experience taught me more than any reading a book about it would have, just being in it. So I just thought I'd share that it was just the awe and wonder of already I'm in eternity and there is nothing to hang on to or try for.
Mm, Thank you. That's lovely. Suzanne.
I just love a couple ideas that the guides have put out. The idea of saying yes and the idea of asking. And so I use that. I find that when I use that more and more, that mind prompt, and then let go of that mind prompt, it is then manifested somehow in my life. The unity, the complexity, the beauty of the connection that we all have together and with the earth. And but I think it's in the letting go of the question. Letting go of the question, knowing that it will be answered in a way that I could never project, but I know is there. And yeah, so every time I have one of those experiences, it confirms both the idea of yes and the idea of ask for me.
All right, thank you very much. Where did we end it off with he interrupts the teach? No, we didn't. Okay. Do we end up with he interrupts the teaching, or did you already read that? Where did we end?
Lonnie was reading.
I
Yeah.
think that's where you have to start. He
Okay.
interrupts the teaching.
We're on now. How this occurs is in the ever present now.
On page 80.
Yeah, right at that top paragraph.
Bottom last paragraph on page 80.
Okay, last paragraph. All right. Alka, do you want to read? Okay, go for it, Alka.
Now, how this occurs is in the ever present now, because the upper room, in many ways, is indeed infinity. Oops. And because it is infinity, the ever present now, all things can be known and seen at the level that you can hold. And that is very important to understand. The level that you can hold is a level that you can align to, manage, without releasing an idea of self that is still required for you to function. Some of you go on journeys where you leave the body and have a difficult time finding your way home. Gosh, I grew up with stories like that in India. In many ways, the need for an altered experience is a present to realize through, which simply means you're offered an opportunity beyond the collective field and invoke what may be a potential there. But we will also say to you, you don't need a substance to journey. You may have that if you choose it, but there are other ways of accessing the divine or experiencing the soul or your idea of timelessness without a collective agreement of how it must happen. It happens at the level of the monad, in agreement to the soul, at the level that the soul can manage and mandates. Underline that the soul mandates. You don't need to drive a car when you don't need to. You don't need to travel into infinity when you don't need to. But what you can learn to do is to align to infinity or align to the destination that the car would take you. Once something is in your alignment, it is being held by you, not just for a moment, but for an eternity. Should I carry on or should I?
Let's stop here and actually, why don't you keep reading? Because this is it. We'll continue this idea, Alka. If you'll just read the next paragraph, that would be great.
Okay. He interrupts the teaching. Well, why not just for a moment? Many people have momentary flashes of the divine, and then we feel despondent when they go away. Generally, those are gifts or intercessions. When you have an intercession, you can imagine the hand of God or the universe or spirit breaking the veils that you could not to alter a trajectory that is necessary. Paul, you have had several. Most people have had several, although they couldn't think of it that way. It's not circumstantial. It's the guides that support you, the divine that is all things, claiming you beyond a system of agreement that might have caused you great harm, or a choice that you could have been made that would have been, or a choice that you could have been made that would have been detrimental to many. I remember a couple of idea-changing experiences that were given to me. But we're out of time.
Well, maybe maybe we could start there next week because that could open up a big discussion. So maybe we'll reread that paragraph next week, which will be August 28th. Okay. Anybody have any closing thoughts? All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Cindy.
Just a moment to say I love us and thank you for being, and rubber meets the road, 11:30 on Monday. Yeah.
So enjoy your time this weekend. See how see how time presents itself to you, the eternal now. And what happens when you remain in the eternal now? When we set our intention to remain in the eternal now.
Love us.
Love us.
The recording.
Thank you all.